Okay, hopefully third time's a charm. I've tried to record this 3 times, and all 3 times it has decided to go bye-bye. So, I just wanted really quickly to talk about effective teaching. Now, I know there are a lot of people who teach that have more effective strategies than I do, have more effective strategies than a lot of people do. And so I kind of have been starting to think about some of the things that I have seen in all my time as an aide, all my time as a substitute teacher, all my time as a teacher in general. Just, every time I've been in the classroom while someone else is teaching. So I kind of wanted to think about that and see if I could come up with what sorts of plans you can make to make your lesson as effective as it can be. So I'm going to kind of break it down and talk about different lessons that I've observed and the teacher and how they did it and what I felt about the effectiveness of that lesson. I want to start with a teacher who was not as effective as I believe they could have been. So she came in and she had taken over for another teacher, and she was not really scaffolding the lessons. She wasn't really assessing. She didn't really have much of a plan at all. I'm not even sure how much of a lesson plan she made up, but she would come in and she would read with no real preamble, just sort of, okay, we're going to read this and answer the questions. She would read through an article. The articles usually were not very interesting. And then she would have the students answer questions. And the students started getting so bored with this kind of plain teaching that they began to act out. And she would kind of look to other adults in the room to hopefully sort of get that back for her. But the students just were lost. They didn't want to be involved in this particular lesson in the way that she was teaching it. So basically she kind of lost them before she had them. The way that the teacher before her did it was quite a bit more effective, although still not perfect. She would come in and she would have an interesting article that she'd picked or an interesting story, and she would read it, and as she read it, she would ask questions of the students, and she would have them discuss, and then she would kind of discuss as they were discussing, sort of have it almost a class-wide discussion, even as the students were discussing in smaller groups, because she would truck across the room. Oh, I hear that you believed this. What do you think about that? And that would start a new set of discussions. So she was very good at that. I think she had a great handle on formative assessments. And then she would usually use things like graphic organizers for her scaffolding. She didn't have a whole lot of differentiation, but the discussions were great, and she did use the graphic organizers and really engaged the students. She had a great hook to her lessons every time. And so I think that's why hers were so effective. Her lessons were really planned out to have maximum interest from the student. Another teacher that I saw that had quite an effective lesson for the same reason, very interesting to the students and innovative as well. He used code.org or maybe it's coding.org. I'll put it down below. But anyways, he used it to help the students learn how to code, but also to help the students learn about angles. So he started with this program that would tell you at first that the character needs to move at this angle, and then after a little while it stopped saying what angle, and it had the students putting in their own angles. In addition to this, it had basic understanding of how to code, in that you would see it would say forward this many pixels, and the character would move forward that many pixels if you put it in the run section. So you'd have to put when run, then it does this. And then if there was a block of repeated codes, you would put the repeat block on there, and then you could actually click a button where you could see the lines of code if you wanted to. The last teacher I want to talk about actually did a really great job. She didn't have a whole lot of technology, although they had done some research on the computers, kind of looking at the forces necessary for the project, which was to get a cotton ball, I think it was 2 or 3 feet beyond where it was without touching it. They had to build a machine that could in some way move that cotton ball. And she had already discussed all the vocabulary that went along with it, all the laws and things like that that they would need to know. And so she kind of reminded them of that, of all the preloaded vocabulary. And then she proceeded to pass out the bags. And the bags were loaded up with all sorts of different items. Each student had a different amount of everything. So she never put the idea of a catapult or anything like that specifically in their heads, but that is kind of what most of them built. However, there was a group that built something that I would say was more like a sort of like a conveyor belt. So she had quite a few very interesting projects built, and as the students were building, she would go around and she'd say, well, why did you put the rubber band here, or why did you tape that popsicle stick over there, or what if you moved this over here? What do you think the difference would be in the reaction of the machine? And she would ask for what laws they were working with, things like that. And I thought that was very interesting because it was a great way for her to assess what they understood, not only about what they were doing, but also about physics and the science of all that motion and everything that they were learning as well. So I thought that was great. The kids stayed engaged the whole way, and you could really tell that they were learning because you could see them adjusting for different eventualities, trying to fix and rework everything, and also specifically mentioning some of the forces that they were trying to fight against. So I really thought that was very interesting. Anyhow, tell me what you think. Has there ever been a lesson that you just thought was really effective, or a teacher that had a style you thought was very effective? Something that was interesting, or even something that was ineffective. I love to hear about all this, and so please share with me. Leave me a comment, and like and subscribe if you like these kinds of videos, and I will see you next time. Have a great day.